Hello everyone and welcome to this video. Now, today I'm really pleased to be joined by a very special guest. I've got wonderful James Griffiths on. So, how are you doing, James?
Hi Ross, yes, very well, thank you. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So, today's video is going to be an interesting one. It's going to be it's called top 10 McCartney moments. Now, how this came about, the kind of jumping off point for this was when me and James were part of a kind of Zoom chat with Lon Stuber, of one of the many members of Wings, a good few months ago, and kind of in that kind of time I was immersed in McCartney's music. I was listening to a lot of it, and I kind of had this idea where to kind of choose sort of not so much sort of songs, but kind of specific moments or bits of songs, whether it be an introduction, whether it be a middle eighth, or whether it be certain lyrics or arrangements, which just sort of you'd either particularly fond of, or have a kind of emotional resonance with you, or you kind of sort of sums up why you like McCartney, why you think he is such a good artist. So that's kind of was the kind of jumping off point. So it's quite a I guess quite a subjective kind of video there. So me and James might have kind of gone in slightly different directions, but it'll be definitely interesting. What I'm really looking forward to delving into. So I'm not sure if you want to start us off, James, with your first pick.
Absolutely, yeah. So just one little proviso. What I've tried to do with these is there are certain songs where I've worked out that it's the entire song that I love, and I'm not actually able to identify a particular moment or a part of it. So I've not gone for those songs. I'm only going to go for ones where I know there's a very specific thing that happens in the song that I think is fantastic, or which I love. Okay, so just to give you a little sneak preview, no spoilers, but I think I've only got maybe 4 albums in my list and a couple of odd songs kicking about, so it's very, very narrow. So my first choice then is not it's not a well-known song. I don't think it's a particularly well-regarded song. I've always really, really liked it. It comes from the CD of the single Beautiful Night, and it's one of the 2 extra tracks on this, and it's the song Love Come Tumbling Down. And I can see the look of sheer amazement on your face. Now,
yeah, no, you've gone deep.
This song was
first track.
Very, very deep first track. Yeah, so this one, it was recorded in '87. I think it came out of the same sessions as, what was the song with Nigel Kennedy on it?
Once Upon a Long Ago.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. So it came off the back of the Press to Play album, which had been a flop. It was produced by Phil Ramone, and production-wise, it's definitely quite dated. I actually think the song is actually really good. It's got some brilliant bass playing on it. It's got a really nice tune, but the bit that just makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end is towards the end of the song, where McCartney, just before the fade out, McCartney hits this really long, elongated note. He sings something like, when I get down to the bottom of this whole affair, and he stretches the word affair out, get down to the bottom of this whole affair, and then he starts to bend the note, and he just does this incredible long, kind of like a comet in the sky vocal performance. His voice goes up, it goes down, he sort of warbles a bit. It's just extraordinary, and it was just a reminder of what an incredible singer he was, sad to say, before his voice gave out on him. And one of the reasons I don't much enjoy listening to modern day McCartney is that his voice is basically gone, it's shot. But that is an example of just an exquisite moment of vocal inspiration. And then it goes into the fade out of the song, which I also love. So yeah, not a famous song. I don't think it's a particularly well regarded song, but I do think that is a really, really amazing moment of McCartney vocalese. So there we go, my first one. Love Come Tumbling Down from 1987.
Very good choice. Yeah, it's like that. I think we say it's not a highly regarded song. It's a song I absolutely love. I think could have been a single in its own right. To be fair, it's that good. Cool. Very good one to kick us off with. So next one for me is arguably a little bit more famous. It is from Band on the Run. I'm going for Picasso's Last Words, and specifically the middle bit where so they have the kind of folky bit at the start, and then you get this bit where all the instruments are cut out. You get this little rhythm box, and then this gorgeous string arrangement comes in, and it's just that. I think it's just that kind of like that switch, that immediate switch. With this, you've got it was Tony Visconti who did the arrangement on this, so he definitely has a lot of credit to play, sort of like that's what credit to take with this particular bit. But then you just get this little reprise of Jet, and then some great vocal harmonies, like the classic Wings sort of 3-part vocal harmony on here. I think it's just it's a good example of his craftsmanship, I guess, being able to stitch songs together and sort of be able to refer back to other songs, and just to create a song which I think takes you on a journey, really. But that specific bit when everything drops out is one of those moments which just makes the hair sort of stand up, really. So Picasso's Last Words for me.
Right, so what I'll do, Ross, I'm going to shuffle my picks because I had this one at number 8. I'll just move it up because it seems a shame to come back to it later, but I have the exact same thing, the exact same
thing you're
talking about. Same song, same part. That bit in Picasso, I don't even need to talk about it because you've explained it so succinctly. But the Tony Visconti string part in particular is just heart melting, and I've never understood the bad press which this song gets. I very, very rarely hear anybody saying anything positive about it. Even people who like Band on the Run tend to sort of dismiss it as being a bit of a, I don't know, I think people seem to dismiss it as maybe him trying to do the Beatles again, or doing something which is a bit derivative of previous things. I've always thought it's fantastic. When I was a child, it was one of the songs which I used to want to hear over and over again. Always loved it. I guess as a song, maybe the whole thing, you could argue it lacks a bit of direction, but just that interlude, it's just so magical. So there we go. I had it at number 8, but I'll move it up the list so we can finish with that. So yeah, good choice.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. So my number 9 now is a song which, again, you had just mentioned a little bit before, Once Upon a Long Ago, I'm going for, and specifically the transition from the guitar solo to Nigel Kennedy's violin solo. Is just stunning for me. I think it's just a touch of genius, and just this song again. It's not one of his coolest songs either. It's very kind of childlike, innocent lyrics, but for me, a bit of that is kind of there's a time and a place for that, and I think that it really works, and it's kind of as I said, it's got this comfort to it, for me, just that bit specifically, where he's got this blistering guitar solo, and then into the violin solo, it just really works for me. So Once Upon a Long Ago, will be my number 9.
Do we know who played the guitar solo on that song?
I'm not sure. I think it was McCartney himself. He certainly, whenever he did it on Top of the Pops and Wogan and all the TV shows, he was on electric guitar rather than bass, miming it. So I'd assume it's him, and but I'm not 100% sure. I could maybe go and get my recording sessions book and refer to that. But I think it's okay. McCartney. Right.
Yeah, good choice. That song always brings back Christmas for me. I remember watching the video. Christmas 80 would have been 86 or 87. Again, I think it's an underrated tune. That it's one that tends to get sort of swept under the carpet a little bit because it comes from that period, sort of after Press to Play, but before Flowers in the Dirt. So it kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. And
it wasn't even originally released in America. It wasn't even originally you released in America. It was just a British only single, and it seemed to. It was his last top 10 hit here as well.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'm going to go right back to my childhood now, and part of this song thrilled me so much when I first heard it. I can't even really begin to explain it, but I must admit, now, at the tender age of 52, it probably doesn't mean quite so much, and you probably won't think anything of this really. But at the time, when I first heard the song "I've Had Enough" at the end of side 1 of London Town, which is not a great song. I've always liked it. There's certain things about it which are maybe not too convincing, but the part of the song which just thrilled me to my marrow was the spoken word bit.
Baby, you know sometimes you get a little weary, but if it ever happens, honey,
where he goes, you know, baby, sometimes you get a little weary, but it ever happens, honey, you just come along to me. I mean, it's not even spoken word, is it? It's sort of halfway between singing and talking, I suppose. But I think you have to remember that when I heard this record, I'd never heard of Elvis Presley. I didn't know who any of the old rock and roll stars. I mean, this guy taught me about rock and roll music. Even, you know, Name and Address on this record, I'd never heard Elvis Presley before, so I heard his take on Elvis before I heard Elvis. And but there was something about that spoken word bit. It's got that kind of, I suppose, like a sort of soul review style thing, you know, something that James Brown might have done in the middle of a song. And I just thought, wow, I didn't know you were allowed to do that on a record. I thought you had to sing, you know. And I can't explain it any more than that, really. It just, I just never heard it before. I'd never heard anybody do that before. And yeah, it just totally spun my head around. So yeah, spoken word passage on "I've Had Enough," London Town. That's my next choice.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, again, not for me, not one of my favourite McCartney songs. But yeah, no, if you've got a connection with it, that's absolutely the point of this video. So that's what for me again, like knowing that you'd said, knowing that you said something earlier about you not liking his recent stuff. For me, of course, I'm a little bit younger, so I do. I kind of came into McCartney while he was kind of still releasing music and kind of releasing kind of his newer albums. And one for me which I've chosen, it's from Egypt Station, and it's the track Despite Repeated Warnings, and specific, and this is, again, it's a bit like Picasso's Last Words. It's one of these multi kind of faceted kind of song suites, kind of song cycles, and it kind of starts off very kind of bog standard piano ballad, but then there's a kind of transition-y bit where the beat picks up and you get this, and you get these great kind of swirling string lines, and then this great horn riff comes in, and it's just a really well constructed track. It's playful as well, which is what I quite like with McCartney. You know, like it's sophisticated, but it's not too pretentious. You know, it is playful, and like it does have a real kind of sense of fun about it. Like just that bit like where the track starts to ramp up for me, I remember the first time I heard this. I think it was a day or two before the album came out. It was leaked, so I remember listening to it, and it was just like, wow, he's still got it. You know, like he can still pull out a sort of multifaceted medley. So yeah, it's a song which like I'll always be relatively fond of there. So yeah, that's that one. That's my number 8.
Good stuff. Yeah. Yes, I need to go back to that album. I listened to it an awful lot when it first came out, and then I just kind of stopped. So I will need to go back and revisit that, because I can't remember the part you're talking about. So I shall look forward to hearing that again and seeing what I think. Right, well, from that down, so we're going to reverse back now, rewind, and we'll go back to this record, Ram, which I'm going to guess is going to be in your list somewhere. I mean, everybody talks about this album, don't they? Not my favourite McCartney album. It's the one that everybody seems to think is his best, but not mine. However, there's some fantastic stuff on it. I'm going to go with the song Monkberry Moon Delight, which I do think goes on for too long as a song. I think it definitely outstays its welcome. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, a little bit, I'd say, yeah.
Too long, extended, kind of just a bit too long. So, but the bit of the song I totally love, there's a kind of bridge part where he sings something like, so I stood with a knot in my stomach and I gazed at the terrible sight. And then what's the next line?
Two youngsters concealed in a barrel.
In the barrel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sucking, Monkberry, Moon, Delight, ba-ba-ba-ba.
So I stood with a knot in my stomach, and I gazed at that terrible sight. Under your stars.
I just love the way it then goes back out into that chorus. It sort of breaks down. I think there's like a sort of mandolin part or something, isn't there? There's like a sort of fast trilling mandolin part. It's truly magical. I've just been reading the McCartney Legacy book, which goes into extreme depth about the recording of this album, and just what an incredible effort it was to pull this record together. I never quite appreciated just how much work he did on it. I think he started it in, I think it was the October or the autumn time of 1970, and he didn't wrap it up until kind of March, April 71. Just 3 different studios, different engineers, working with him. A huge amount of work, and that track took a long time to get right. And I think it's definitely one of McCartney's most special early efforts, and that's the part that I love most of all. I do like the whole track, like I said, but I do think it slightly outstays its welcome. So, yeah, Monkberry, Moon, Delight.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I must say I actually haven't got a song from Ram on like this list, which might be quite surprising. Although I was definitely flirting with the idea, because again, that whole album for me is kind of is almost like a reason why I like him so much in itself, because it manages to be very sophisticated, but also has a kind of homespun feel to it as well. Even though, as you say, it was recorded all around the world in sort of different studios, it still has a kind of rawness to it and a kind of DIY attitude kind of thing. That's one definitely probably my favourite Authors albums, I'd say, all round. But yeah, just couldn't quite pick a specific one for this list to represent it. So going from one of his most highly acclaimed albums there to maybe his least well acclaimed album, Pipes of Peace, and it's the closing track, Through All Love, which I'm going for. Which again, it's one of these, a bit like that Once Upon a Long Ago, very cheesy, a bit like I don't say cringy, but for me it is just a good moment. It's the bit where it's like from the first chorus into the second verse, where the whole thing just again ramps up. You get these timpani drums and this great orchestration. Again, a lot of credit with this has to go to George Martin as producer and arranger. So it is cheesy, but that's why I like McCartney sometimes, and I think that this is a moment that I always look forward to, with this song, and whenever I play it, I could just think, oh god, wow, that was a great. That was a great moment. So Through All Love, that bit specifically for me would be my number. What's that, 7?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. You say you don't have Ram. I don't have that album in my list, but I do like that album, and there's quite a few moments from it that I could have had. So, for example, the acoustic guitar solo in Sweetest Show I've always loved, and there's a couple of other moments in that record. That song is one that I didn't really notice for many years. I had this thing in my mind about side 2 being a bit of a letdown, a bit of a damp squib, and it took a long time for me to actually cotton on to the fact that there was this really, really quite a classy ballad right at the end. After you've got through all that hey hey and tug of peace stuff, which is a bit, it's a bit hard on the ear, isn't it, sometimes? But I know Richard loves it. Richard McCook loves those 2 tracks, so we won't say anything too bad about them. But good choice, and quite a deep cut again. My next one, I've lost track of what number I'm on now, because I did my little shuffle at the start, so I'm not sure where I am now. I'm gonna go in big with the Tug of War album, and there's so many moments on this that I could choose. I'm actually going to go for the title track, Tug of War, which I think at the time was one of the most surprisingly majestic, high quality things they'd done for a long time. I think it took people's breath away almost. It was so sort of stunning and orchestral and grand and majestic, with this fantastic lyric. But the part of the song which just really gives me goosebumps is the part where he sings, in years to come we may discover that the air we breathe and the life we lead is all about, but it won't be soon enough for me.
In years to come, they may discover what the air we breathe and the life we lead are all about, but it won't be soon enough.
And then all these just wonderful harmonies just come sweeping in, this great sort of creamy wave of, I think it's probably Linda, Eric Stewart, McCartney, maybe Denny Lane, and just all that sort of George Martin goodness washing over. It's just a true Sugar Rush kind of sound, really, but married to this very incisive lyric, which is, again, it's, at the time, McCartney hadn't really done that many great lyrics in the 1970s, and I think that song really made people sit up and notice. So we'll go with that, Tug of War, the In Years to Come verse.
Well, that one was also on my list. Actually, funnily enough, at number 1, it was the bit that motivated this whole video. And I kind of got the idea for it. Again, it is for me one of those goosebump moments. And it's just everything that you said there. A great line, and then just and again, it's that contrast between the kind of, because so far, again, the song, it is very orchestrated, but then the electric guitar comes in, the drums get loud, and I think it just really works as a bridge section, just you really just think, God, wow, what a good song. So that was my number 1. So I just thought I would throw that in there just now. So I think we're back to you for whatever your next one will be then after that, I believe.
Oh no. The pressure's on. Well, fortunately, we can stay with the same album, so I don't need to scramble around. So I think I've got, yes. So this album's going to come up again, actually. I decided I couldn't leave out the song Wanderlust from this album, which was always a favourite of mine. I remember I got this album on cassette back when I was a teenager, which is quite rare for me because I always used to have records, but I just got a Sanyo Walkman for Christmas, so I was really, really into tapes, and I got this album on cassette, and Wanderlust is just one that I remember just playing over and over and over and over again, rewinding it. So I just couldn't process how great it was. Now, this nearly didn't get on the list just by dint of the fact that it's such a great song all the way through. I couldn't really think, is there a part of the song? Now, in the end, I managed to get it down to 2 individual bits, and the first bit I'm just going to say is just the opening piano refrain. It's just so majestic. I don't know whether he played it himself on it, whether he got somebody else to do it, but it just comes in with such authority, just these wonderful chords, dun, 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 dun. It's just so majestic. So I had to have that bit in, and then later on, that bit where you've got the overlapping vocal melodies, where he starts to do the oh, where did I go wrong, my love? What petty crime was I found guilty of? And it just builds up again, and then goes back out into that chorus again. It's just absolutely magnificent. One of those songs which could easily have, well, not easily, but if it had got onto a Beatles album a few years before, it would be known as a stunning classic. The whole world would love it. As it is, really only McCartney fans know about it, because I don't think he plays the song live, does he? So, but yeah, had to have it. Wanderlust. Magnificent.
Fantastic. Yeah, that was a kind of maybe choice for me. Again, it was one which, now you mentioned that the end bit kind of does, it's just a great moment. Now, I did have this one a bit further up, but since we are on a bit of a tug of war streak, I thought I would stick with the album. I thought I'd go back to the album, and the track end, the pound is sinking, and this is a specific, it's like a vocal performance. It's like the bit where he goes no, it didn't happen, only for a minute, your heart just wasn't in it anymore. That vocal performance, I think, is maybe his best actually, I'm going to say his best post-Beatles vocal performance right there, I think. I mean, again, Beatles days, yeah, okay, different kettle of fish. But I think, like, as a kind of, post-Beatles vocal performance, that is just stunning. And I mean, like, the whole song is great, but yeah, just that vocal, just like, what a performance. So yeah, that's my next choice.
Yeah, well, I'm holding it up again because I've just done the same. So I had this one at number 2. And I've just so I've just written down the pound is sinking, and then in brackets after it I put, oh, it couldn't happen, just to remind myself of what the thing was. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like the one I've had already, the Love Come Tumbling Down one. It's a very similar kind of vocal moment in his career. A few times, I think in the 70s and early 80s, I think because McCartney was in very, very good voice. He'd come out of the Beatles obviously as a great singer, but then he'd gone on the road with Wings and he'd become such a seasoned performer and making all these records. And I think by the time he got to the early 80s, I think he had reached a peak, and in fact it was going to burn out quite soon afterwards. I think even on Pipes of Peace, I don't think his voice is quite as good as it was on this. On Press to Play, it's not quite as good as it was on Pipes of Peace. So there's a definite deterioration as you get into the 80s. But I think on Tug of War, I think the whole album, his vocal is absolutely stunning, and that bit, it's just got such emotion in it. And what's interesting is the song itself doesn't really mean that much. I think it's 4 or 5 different excerpts just jammed together, isn't it, really? And it shouldn't really work. It shouldn't have an emotional heart to it, because it is just a case of stitching this stuff together. But that's the part of the song where it all just comes together. And he tricks you into thinking that the whole song has got this incredible, profound meaning behind it just by doing that one, or that few bars of incredible vocals at the end. It just totally lifts it above what it could have been. So yeah, number 2, I've jumped right up now, so that's my number 2 done.
Yeah,
and we've had your number 1, haven't we? So we've
exactly. We're all over the place here. Yeah, I'm just gonna have to remember who's gone what. So I think it's my turn because I had you doing Pads of Sinking there, and like as my one. So my next one again, it's a moment, but it's almost like the full song because it's so short. So it's from London Town, and it's a Backwards Traveller, and specifically the bit where you get all these kind of. I think there's a gizmotron, and there's all these sort of synth bits going on like on the track, and again it just sounds so like there's a lot of gravitas to it. I'm the backwards traveller, ancient again, he creates such a good atmosphere, like on like that kind of like the ending bit, and teamed with like a very assured vocal performance. Maybe like the last 30 seconds, I guess, like a Backwards Traveller. It's a song I just wish was a bit more fully developed, But I think it just sits alone like as a great moment, which is always like worth going back to for me. So that's my next one.
Good stuff, yeah. Underrated track, and I've always liked Cufflink as well, which must make me one of the only people ever to say those words. But there we go. Okay, good stuff. So my number 4 choice, we're going to go back to an album I've already shown, and it's Band on the Run again. This is a moment in the song which it always makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end, and it's the track Mammonia on side 2. And it's towards the end of the song where you hear McCartney saying something like, everywhere I look, it's just the same old sound. I like it. And Linda is playing this, I think it's a Moog line on the piano, and she does this great big octave swoop and goes up into I think it's a full octave. She goes, you, and then just plays this gorgeous melody at the end of the song. And it's just got the most uplifting, I don't know, I can't even describe it. It's making me feel emotional just talking about it. It's a very nostalgic sound for me, I guess, but it's just hearing McCartney in the background. He's probably just vamping, everywhere I look, it's the same old sound. I like it. And you just get this kind of sense of them all just grooving away in Lagos in this studio, with the rain coming down outside, just sort of having a great time. And Yeah, it's a song which is very, very special to me. Bit of a sleeper on the record. I don't think it's necessarily one of his greatest tunes or anything, but I've always loved it.
Yeah, no, great one there. Definitely one I'd like overlooked there like a little bit. But yeah, like great choice. So I guess like a lot of our choices so far have been very uplifting moments, or moments that we get a real up feeling from. But this one's a bit of an opposite one. It's a track from Memory Almost Spoil, and it's the track "The End of the End." And it's this was a song which McCartney must be maybe about 65 when he wrote and recorded this track, and it's essentially him kind of contemplating like his own death. So there's a very heart-tugging line where he sings like on he sings like, "On the day that I die, I'd like jokes to be told and stories of old to be rolled out like carpets."
On the day that I die, I'd like jokes to be told and stories of old to be rolled out like carpets. The children.
And yeah, again, just almost like hearing him in his older man voice singing that line, you know, again, it is a very emotional sort of like moment basically. Again, it's a song which is buried away like on this album, but I think when that day does come when he is no longer with us, I think this song will grow in stature sort of tenfold. But I think it's definitely one which for me always gets me. The End of the End would be another sort of moment for me, but for a very different reason to a lot of the others.
Yeah, cool, good choice. Yeah, that record is one which has definitely gone up in my estimation as time has gone on. Righto, so my next one was at number 3. I don't know whether it still is at number 3 anymore. It probably still is, but I'm going to go to Press to Play. I'm going to have to show my CD of this because my record is momentarily out of reach. So this is the song "Good Times Coming, Feel the Sun," which I think is an absolutely cracking pair of songs stitched together as only McCartney can have it. And it's sort of the join between them which I completely love. But it's the snatch of verse which he puts into "Feel the Sun." All the beauty, all the fame, will it ever be the same again? If you love me, tell me now. It's the only reason we know how. And then it goes back out into "Feel the Sun" again.
Will it ever be the same again? If you love me, show me now. It's the only way that we know how. Feel the sun shining.
Yes, it's got a dated production. Yes, it sounds very 1980s, but it's just got that kind of glorious McCartney melody. And I think it's a great example of two songs stitched together with this incredible fade out stretching off into the distance. So had to have that, and had to have it quite high as well. I've always loved it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good choice there. I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but there is a kind of like an alternate version of like the "Feel the Sun," which has different verses. So it's got two different verses to it, which maybe not quite as, but I was going to say maybe not quite as strong as the one that he'd went for, but they had a bit of length to it, because on the album it is just chorus verse chorus, but this one it kind of meanders on a little bit, but it's still good though. But yeah, just interesting that you kind of thought like to cut those out. Yeah,
I have heard that, and I don't think I think it's much better how he actually had it in the end. Yeah.
Okay, so my next one is from the album Red Rose Speedway here, and it's a bit of the medley. It's the bit of like the track "Lazy Dynamite," where he goes like, "Won't you come out tonight when the time is right? Why do you fight that feeling in your heart?"
Do you know that inside there's a love you can hide? So why do you fight that feeling?
That bit again for me is just such a magical moment. I think it's the second time it comes around. You get again probably one of the best examples of like the Wings 3-part harmony. It's just heavenly, and like teams with like that lyric. I think it's just the moment which I really like. It's easily the best bit of like this medley. Like it's like what I kind of like. It's a bit of a slog to get through bits of it, but it's kind of like this is this is kind of like a real golden moment in it, like it's just got such a great kind of sense of longing, and just that kind of the fact that it kind of does slow down a little bit when it gets to that, and like then kind of picks up again. It's just got a real great kind of like feel to it, and like for me always just makes like the hairs on like the back of my neck like stand on end. It's just a great song. So yeah, like that bit of Lazy Dynamite, wonderful wee bit of music.
Yeah, I must admit I've never had much time for that medley, but you're right. I think that is the one part of it which you would play to somebody and not almost be sort of. Well, no, I say that. There's a couple of other good bits. I do quite like I Can't Get Over Myself Falling Into the Hands of Love. I've liked that bit a lot better since seeing John Heaton playing it on the piano in his house. But there's certain parts of that medley that I really, really don't get on with.
Yeah.
But I think you correctly identified the one part which has got a flash of something a bit more special, I think. Interesting choice. I didn't see that coming. I didn't see the Redrow Speedway medley coming, so plaudits to you for that. Righto, well, number one for me had to be this. This is my favourite song of all time by anybody ever. My favourite single, favourite song, favourite piece of recorded music. So for me, it was just a case of trying to work out which bit of it I was going to talk about. So, going back to what I said before, really, this should have been disqualified because it is the whole song that I love. But I just did want to highlight a couple of bits. There's one really silly part, which I've always loved, and it's just the bit where he taps the side of the guitar.
Mull of Kintyre, Mull of Kintyre.
Just gets me every time, because you can you wait for it as I sort of gap, isn't there? And then you just hear him going. It's just, I can't even describe, it's just magical. So that bit, but I guess it's the bagpipes in this song, isn't it? Really, it's the bagpipes which kind of elevate it into something special. So I will just go with, for the main one, I'll go with just the first time the bagpipes come in. I just think it's just wonderful the way you sort of hear them in the distance, gradually getting louder. And it's such a great evocation of what bagpipes do, like a marching band marching towards you. You start to hear the noise, and then all of a sudden it just kind of bursts into the center of the picture, and it's so magical in the video where you see them walking down the beach, and it's just majestic. It just lifts the whole thing. So that's kind of the main part. But then I've always loved the end part as well, with all the big whoops, the woo-hoo, as they're all around the campfire at the end. Only McCartney could have come up with something like that, which is sort of cheesy as hell in a way. It's the ultimate campfire song, but only he could have turned it into a number one single that was going to reign supreme for 9 weeks or whatever it was. Other songwriters, lesser songwriters, would have tried to do a Scottish waltz with bagpipes, and it would have been terrible, and wouldn't have got anywhere. But because you've got McCartney's melodic genius and just his way with a tune, the whole thing is totally majestic. So no apologies. I know some people don't like Mull of Kintyre. I know it's got that stigma of having come out at the height of the punk summer 1977. It wasn't what some people wanted to hear. It was stuck in the charts for too long. People were sick of it. But for me, it'll always be my favourite song. So I couldn't not have it.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. For me, again, it's what I did slightly overlook for this list, but I probably could have easily included it. I think probably one of my best concert experiences was seeing that live, in Glasgow, bringing on the pipe band and that. Again, it was just, and I always think of that now.
So you're at that show?
Yeah, at Hampden Park. Yeah, he does it live on occasion now. I guess whenever, only when he is in Scotland, or I think he does it in Canada sometimes as well, because there's a kind of Scottish immigrant population there. So he didn't do it live all that often, and when he does, it's always very special. Always brings out the full pipe band and that. And just for me, whenever I hear that song now, I just think of that concert experience, and it was one of my first concerts actually back in 2010. So fantastic choice there. So for me,
Good
my
stuff.
last one, which was on my number 2, because as I said, Tug of War was my number 1, but it's and it's kind of going a bit of full circle back to the first thing that you've shown in this video. It's the track like Beautiful Night, and it's specifically the coda, like the end part of it. Where so you got a very nice ballad, nice string to that, and then just the end, it's just this fun kind of, almost like a jam kind of thing, where they're just, again, they're repeating this line, beautiful night, beautiful night. You've got Ringo on it very prominently as well, which I think I may be right in saying was maybe one of the only times that another solo Beatle actually sang so prominently on like another's track. Like, I mean, you had examples like all those years ago where they were doing backing vocals, but you can't really make them out as like Paul, as like Paul, like all like that song. This is one where Ringo's like sort of like singing like sort of like is like quite high like in like the mix, and it just kind of, again, you think even though this was only say about 37 years since the Beatles, so it wasn't, relatively speaking, all that long since, but you kind of feel like, well, yeah, okay, these are two guys, they've known each other since they were very young, and they've kind of come like sort of like are still kind of making great music together, like I think. And then again, it's kind of, you've got George Martin there as well with his like orchestration, like the arrangement. It's just such an uplifting piece for me. Like again, it is repetitive, it is sing-alongable, but I think it's just something that it's just for me, like it's an exception to that kind of rule where I don't get tired of it, I think, and I think it just really works as the kind of ending of this track. You know, I think just because there were a lot of earlier versions of this track, like ones done with Phil Ramone in like kind of like the late 80s, which just seemed to go on a bit. Like he kind of just keeps repeating like the chorus line, and it just meanders on and on and on. So, but this is a stroke of genius, like at like the end, like off the track. So yeah, that was another key moment there for me, at the end of Beautiful Night.
Good one. I did not see that one coming either. Yeah, great stuff. Yeah, and I need to revisit Flaming Empire. It's been a long time since I listened to that album. So, yeah, cool stuff.
Yeah, well, so I think that's us at the end of the video now. Yeah, I think we were sort of like all over the place a little bit, like with like our lists, but I think yeah, like we've done 10 each.
In a good way.
Yeah, it's been a really good video actually. It's gone a bit better like than I thought it would in terms of like how we were sort of like choosing them. But I think it just shows that like he is maybe my favourite musician, I'd say, like on balance. And I think between us we've got 20 moments there, so just kind of demonstrate why like he is held up in such high esteem like by his fans. Been really enjoyable video. So thanks very much, James, for coming along and being part of it.
Thanks, Ross. Thanks for inviting me. I really enjoyed it.
Excellent stuff. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed watching, and I'll see you all again for the next video. Goodbye.
Bye.